Okay, yeah. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for all those of us who have joined today to go live with Mansi. So, we're here to explore alternative career options in public policy and administration. To introduce Mansi, she is a lawyer and a public policy researcher who has spent the last 5 years working with MPs in legislative research, and she has also helped with election campaign management. Mansi has worked on several policy research and advocacy assignments while writing for First Post, The Wire, Caravan, and Economic Political Weekly, to name a few. Mansi has also founded a civic innovation Madhyam, which is a participatory policy making initiative that I will ask her to tell us more about shortly. Presently, Mansi is working to help coordinate ration and relief distribution with a team comprising of people working with the Delhi government and civil society organizations in Delhi. Thank you so much, Mansi, for being here.
Thank you, Radhika, for having me over. Excited to be a part of Career Samvad and share my thoughts and insights on public policy as a career option, as well as talk a bit about my initiative, Madhyam.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mansi. So, can you tell us a little about Madhyam and what exactly this is and how you got started with this?
I think it all started when I first started working with an MP, which was when I got through the LAMP Fellowship. So, LAMP Fellowship is a program which is run by an organization called PRS Legislative Research, which does research on laws and policies. And they prepare legislative briefs, which they share with MPs, and they also work with MPs and brief them on different policy issues. They run a fellowship in which they place young people, so it's only meant for people below 25 years of age, and they can be graduates in any subject as long as they have an active interest in public policy. So they can apply for the fellowship, and once they get selected, they are placed in the office of an MP. The MP could be from any political party, could be from either of the two houses of parliament. And then for a period of 1 year, they are supposed to assist the MP with their legislative work. So that is what I was selected for, and I was placed in the office of an MP. And it was then that I started thinking more about how somebody like me working in an MP's office, how do they gather all this information for on which I am supposed to do research so that I can prepare briefs for the MP, and they can eventually raise those issues in the House. And that is when I realized that there is very little interaction which happens with a member of parliament, with other people and organizations, as well as groups who are working on different policy issues. So there could be civil society organizations, there could be academic institutions, there could be journalists, those who are doing a lot of work on the ground and have a lot of insight on how different public policy issues are working on the ground, and they would like for these issues to be taken to their representatives, their members of parliament, so that they can eventually inform policy making at the highest level. But there really is no way through which they can be, they could be brought together on a common platform. And that's when I started thinking about Madhyam. And as you know, Madhyam is a Hindi word which means a medium. So the idea was basically to draw a medium between those who are working on different policies, those who would want to give inputs on how policy should be made, and those who are the policy makers, so that they could work together, they could co-create policies, and there could be an exchange of information and insight between them. So that's how I started Madhyam. But of course, now I do a lot of other things with Madhyam as well. It revolves around Parliament as a policy making institution. I am I very keenly follow Parliament and the lawmaking process there. I write about it often. I live tweet parliamentary proceedings through the Madhyam Twitter channel. I share daily updates on what's happening in Parliament on my LinkedIn profile and on the Facebook page. A lot of people follow these channels to keep themselves abreast of what's happening in Parliament, what laws and policies are being debated, what are the issues that are being debated. I also undertake citizen engagement initiatives. So this is something which is very close to my heart. So citizen engagement initiatives basically mean that I whenever the government is proposing a law, so the government says that we are going to come out with a law. This is a draft that we have put in public domain, and we'd like you to give your suggestions and inputs. Now this exercise remains exclusively to a set of people who are either working on those policy issues or who are very closely following these developments, and therefore they come to know that a law has been put out in public domain. But a lot of people, because eventually any public policy affects us in our daily lives, but we rarely get an opportunity to share our suggestions on what that policy should be. So when I undertake citizen engagement initiative, I basically take a draft law or a policy that has been proposed. I try to explain it in as simple words as possible, and then I circulate a questionnaire, and I ask people, I include simple open-ended, close-ended questions in it, and I just ask them to give me their thoughts and ideas and opinions on what they think the policy should be. So the most recent exercise that I undertook as a citizen engagement initiative was on the personal data protection bill. And data protection and privacy is something which very intimately affects all of us. Anyone who is spending any time on the internet will be affected by it, and therefore they should have a say in what the policy eventually has. So I undertook that exercise, and I created a couple of videos explaining what the data protection bill is about, which is available on the Madhyam YouTube channel. And then I circulated a questionnaire. A lot of people filled up that questionnaire, sharing their ideas and thoughts, what they understand by concepts such as privacy, how do they experience privacy online, what would they want a data protection bill to have, how would they want their rights to be protected. Some very interesting and insightful responses came in, which I collected and which I passed on to the Joint Parliamentary Committee, which is currently studying this bill. So these kind of initiatives I keep doing through Madhyam, with the ultimate idea being that people should be brought closer to Parliament, which is the highest policy making institution, and they should be brought closer to the policy makers. And this constant loop of feedback and communication should be maintained between those who are making the policies and those who ultimately get affected by it.
Right. That's great, Mansi. That's like so many things that Madhyam as a civic innovation is doing. I would also just like to thank everyone who has just rejoined, who has joined this conversation again. Thank you for coming in. Mansi has just explained about Madhyam, her civic innovation. And right now, I would like to ask her to tell us, like, from her experience, what kind of different options exist for someone to have a career in public policy? What are the different alternatives that they can pursue?
Right. So, in preparation for this webinar, I thought I'd actually sit down and list out the different options that I am aware of. And this basically comes from the experiences that I have had, and the experiences of some of my friends who are also working in the public policy domain. So I will actually read out from the list that I have created. So of course, at the top of the list is of course research, because a lot of public policy, or rather, I should say that public policy would not exist if there is no solid research to back it. So there is almost always a need for good researchers, those who have a keen eye for facts, and who like to dig up data and work with data. So there is always a need for researchers, whether it is in the offices of members of parliament or ministers, or in different think tanks, or there are a lot of civil society organizations and NGOs who also hire people to do research on different policies which affect the issues that they are working on. There are academic institutions which have public policy schools, and they also do public policy research on many live issues. Nowadays, a lot of organizations and a lot of ministries, like for instance Niti Aayog, and very recently I think Ministry of Statistical Statistics and Program Implementation. They have come out with a call for young professionals. So a lot of these ministries are hiring young people, researchers, those who are experts in a particular domain, to come and work with them on public policy formulation and research. So there is actually right now a place for both specialists in certain domains as well as generalists as well. There are a lot of fellowships also available. I explained about the LAMP fellowship at the beginning. Other than that, there is a very popular fellowship nowadays called the CMGGA, the Chief Minister's Good Governance Associate, which is a fellowship offered by the Haryana government, where you directly work with the district administration on different public policy issues as well as policy implementation as well. Then, of course, there are a lot of options to undertake policy advocacy. There are organizations which hire specifically for this role. There are a lot of, I mean, they go by different names. They might be government relations, they might be public advocacy. So, a lot of think tanks, a lot of organizations, a lot of lobby groups as well. For instance, FICCI, CII, etc., who specifically work on industry related policy. They also hire people specifically to work on public policy. There is, you can also undertake public policy entrepreneurship like the kind that I am doing right now. A lot of civic engagement initiatives are mushrooming all across the country right now, and there is a space for a lot more. I think there is, a specific set of public policy journalism which is also coming up. A lot of people also refer to it as data journalism as well, where you're basically digging up a lot of data on different schemes of the government, on a lot of other things, and you are trying to find, how schemes are working on the ground, what can be done to improve them, etc. So a lot of those who are doing journalism are also very closely following public policy and require an understanding for that. So I think public policy is one domain where a wide range of activities are possible, and I think almost everyone can find something of their interest to pursue in public policy if they are interested in it. And as I said at the beginning, there is something for specialists. There is space for specialists to be in this area, and there is space for generalists to be in this area as well. There is space for those who are good at communication, to handle advocacy, public policy. There is space for those who are very good with research, who like to dig up data, who like to use statistical methods and models and analysis to work with the data and to come up with interesting insights and inputs. So it's definitely a space which is very dynamic, very diverse, and which offers something for everyone.
Right. That's so amazing, Mansi, to hear because when we usually hear someone say like public policy or public administration, like our first instinct is to immediately think about like government jobs or clearing a government exam. But like from your story, we see that there is a whole world beyond this. So also like coming to this point, for many people who want to pursue a career in public policy, and like you've explained, there are so many options and so many different organizations that look for professionals in this field. Could you tell us maybe some of the most common misconceptions that parents and students might have, and how we could maybe combat these misconceptions?
So I think one of the misconceptions is that there is only a certain background of people for whom a job in public policy might be possible, or that for someone to be able to find a good career option in public policy, a degree in public policy would be needed. And from my experience, I can tell you that a lot of people I know who are working at senior positions in different organizations, handling a lot of public policy work, do not have any academic background in public policy. They have background in subjects in which they are expert at. So they may be lawyers, they may be engineers, they may be urban specialists, they may be environmentalists, they may be they may be someone who is a specialist in business laws. It may be someone who's a software engineer and therefore very good at understanding technologies, and therefore they can help drive tech policy. I think one of the biggest misconception is that someone, for instance, who's an engineer cannot get into public policy, which is definitely not true. As a matter of fact, when I was doing LAM fellowship and in every subsequent batch of LAM fellowships, we have had many engineers coming in, joining, doing very well, and then continuing in this domain. Public policy as an option is open to almost anyone with any domain, as long as you have a knack for it, you have an interest for it. So you should be one who should enjoy research. You should be one who should enjoy, reading up pieces of law and pieces of policy, and then trying to engage your academic background with it and to understand what can be done. So as long as you are someone who is interested in that, your academic background, you will be able to find a good fit for your academic background in that domain. And the second misconception is that a master's in public policy, for instance, or any other course in public policy is a must. One, I don't think it is a must at all. As I said, a lot of people I know do not have any academic background in public policy. Second, personally for me, I also at one point of time did think of going for a master's in public policy, eventually dropped the idea, and I can speak about it later if you want in greater detail. But to me, at least, a master's in public policy not would perhaps not add a very some specific sort of skills for you to excel in the field of public policy. What it might help you gain is definitely a greater perspective on how to look at public policy issues, and which is something that you can also gain on the job if you've been in this field long enough. If you've been working on public policies throughout for a couple of months, couple of years, then you will gain this, this way of working on public policy eventually. So these are the two misconceptions which I think exist.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for clearing those up, Mansi. You also told us that you don't have any formal degree in public policy and you had plans of pursuing a master's in this, but you dropped the idea. And a lot of people that you know in the field also do not have formal degrees in public policies, but are subject experts in their own individual right and field. But if someone here wanted to actually pursue like a secondary degree in policy, what were some of the universities or institutions they could look at to apply?
So in India, there are very few institutions which are offering public policy course at all. So there
Okay.
is National Law School, University Bangalore, which recently, a couple of years ago, started a master's in public policy program. There is the Jindal University, which also offers public policy program. I think TIS University also offers a public policy program, and I think a couple of years ago, some MBA institutes like I think ISB offers a public policy program, and I think some of the IIMs also, maybe IIM Bangalore, I think offers a public policy program. So in India, the options are far and few,
Okay.
and since a lot of these programs are relatively new, I mean it's difficult to say. I really wouldn't be able to say anything on the quality of the programs at all. But these are the programs that I know. I know that there are some upcoming fellowships designed around public policy as well, which are coming up. There is the Indian School of Public Policy (ISPP), which I think offers a 1 year public policy program, which is a mix of academic and project-based learning. So there are a lot of people are experimenting with it. I think partly because a lot of people are showing interest in public policy, and so institutions are realizing the need for it, and therefore more and more programs are being designed for it. And partly also because I think in the coming future there will be a need for a lot of people who would be able to help in formulation of public policy, and therefore maybe some kind of academic underpinning might help. So some programs are coming up. But other than that, a lot of my friends have also gone to universities abroad for doing masters in public policy program. Um, and I think each one of them is as good as the other, depending on what you make of it, really. So I wouldn't be able to recommend any one over the other. When initially I was doing my own research for which school I should apply for, etc., I was of course looking at options like Oxford, Harvard. LSE has a couple of masters in social policy programs. And I think anyone who is interested in public policy will look at all these options and eventually decide what particular program suits their interest the best, because some of these programs are also focused on certain aspects of public policy. So accordingly, one can go for such programs.
Right, right. That's really insightful, Mansi. Thank you. So you've been running Madhyam for a couple of years now, and through this venture and through many of the own skills that you also mentioned, like from investigation to writing to public speaking to research, what would you say are like some of the most crucial skills that someone needs to have to pursue a career in public policy and administration?
I think one is definitely research, because and I think you should be very you should be someone who shouldn't get bored with doing research. So which means that a certain part of your job might just be doing desk research, and reading papers after papers, or reading articles after articles, to find that one piece of information that will help you make your point, what you were trying to say. So you should definitely be someone who doesn't mind doing that. So I'm not saying you should be someone who should love research absolutely, but you should definitely not mind doing that, because that will be a big part of your job. Second is that you should be someone who should be good with communication, and by communication I not just mean written or verbal communication, but a lot of interpersonal communication. Because see, when we say public policy, we know that public is a part of it. So it's all about policies which will eventually affect people. And nowadays there's a lot of upcoming research on, for instance, behavioral science and how that affects public policy. So you should be someone who is very comfortable with dealing with a lot of people, because if you're doing public policy jobs, you are meeting a lot of people. They could be the stakeholders for whom you are doing the research. For instance, if you're working in the office of an MP, it could be the MP, it could be people who are working with the MP, etc., their staff. If you're working with an NGO, sorry, if you're working with an NGO, and if you're, for instance, doing research on an issue that the NGO wants to do advocacy on, and you have to be on the ground, and you have to interact with a lot of people, and you have to understand their perspective. So you need to have that kind of interpersonal skill. And then of course, I think almost anyone who is doing public policy research nowadays, advocacy just somehow comes attached to it. So you can't just be doing research and preparing reports and then keeping it on the side. You'd want people to read your report. You'd want people to actually take your report seriously, and you'd want people to the policymakers to eventually act on it. And for that, you need to do active advocacy. And advocacy requires a lot of interpersonal communication skills. So I think these two things are very important. And third, I think, is persistence or perseverance, because anyone who is working in public policy knows that any policy that you are working on, for instance, if you're doing advocacy, to change a certain policy, then you know that the process is going to be very long. It's long gestational project. The success rate is going to be very low. So until and unless you are someone who can take who doesn't get too daunted by setbacks, and who knows, okay, so one strategy that we adopted didn't work, we have to try something new, and it's the same point that we have to keep repeating, but we have to repeat it in different times every time, and we have to repeat it before different people every time. So until and unless you have that sort of because, like, for instance, and I'll give one example. So I am someone, because I've been following Parliament very closely for a while now. So I am someone who feels about Parliament as an institution very strongly, and I want everyone to be as serious, to take Parliament as seriously as I do, and therefore I want people to demand that their Parliament should represent their interests. The Parliament should work productively and effectively. So therefore I write about it a lot in my updates, in my articles. I keep mentioning this point again and again, that if the rules are not being followed, that is not good. If the government is not giving space to the opposition in Parliament to speak, that is not good. If MPs are not getting chance to raise their points in the house, that is not good. So that is something that I feel very strongly for. I do a lot of research around it, I do a lot of advocacy around it, and I know that if I want people to also take this seriously, and I have to persistently keep talking about it. So I think these three skills are very important. Other than, of course, there should be something that you have sort of a good understanding for. So I'm a lawyer. I enjoy working on laws. You could be someone who is very good with environment related policies, or you could be someone who's good, very good on labor rights and labor policies, etc. So there should be just something which you can sort of draw your attention to, and something that you can work around. So other than that, I think these three skills are very valuable.
Right, right, right. So Mansi, like you've also explained about like the different stakeholders that Madhyam itself works around, I mean, from members of parliament to civil society actors to even basic research individuals. So as a career, who would you say like would be the primary and secondary stakeholders of public policy? Like who really is public policy for?
So I think I partly answered this question when I said, that the word public is part of public policy, and so whatever you're doing will eventually affect people. So when you are trying to propose a policy, or when you are trying to, do research on an issue, and you want to eventually give suggestions or solutions on what should be done, you should know that this is going to have effect on real lives. And I think that is something you should never lose sight of, because otherwise what happens then is that away from ground realities, whenever policies are made, they eventually end up having less than the desirable effect. And that was also one of the reasons that when I started out with Madhyam, my idea was that I wanted to involve those who will eventually get affected by these policies in the very making of those policies, because they almost never get heard. So if you are working in public policy, I think you should go with the understanding, and this might not apply to everyone. Not everyone would want to get into public policy with this kind of a social bent of mind, which is fine. But this is just my take on it. My take on it is that one should definitely keep in mind that actual lives are going to be affected by whatever you are working on, or whatever you're going to propose. So that's one. Second is that, of course, the policy makers, which could be from MPs to ministers. If it is at the national level, it would be the MLAs or the ministers, the state government at the state level, and if it is a local policy, then the local administration. So you can never discount government when it comes to public policy, because eventually they make and they implement the policy. And within government also, there are various actors. There are those who are making the policies, there are those who are implementing it. And then I think the third stakeholder definitely would be different groups who might have an interest in it. So for instance, if we speak of environmental policy, we know that there is the industry, which would have a specific point of view with respect to environmental laws. Then there will be environmentalists, or there will be those who are who want to conserve nature. Then there will be those who are dependent on the environment for their livelihood. So, for instance, if we are talking about a forest, there will be the tribals and forest dwellers who are dependent on that forest for their life and livelihood. Then there will be the government, which will be interested in, and their interest could range from either conserving a particular piece of land, or it could be, that okay, we need to generate some kind of revenue out of this land, and so we can either give it to industry or to someone else. So in every issue of public policy there will be multiple interests involved, and it is very important for anyone to who is working in public policy to be cognizant of this first, and second, to be able to identify who those different interested parties would be, and to understand what their interest would be, and eventually to work their way around it. So I think public, government, and the different interested parties would be the three major stakeholders.
Right, right. So public policy itself, like what I'm getting for you, what I'm getting from you is a very diverse and a very intriguing field to work in. You need to have so many skills, both hard skills and soft skills. You need to have a lot of critical thinking skills, communication skills, and so much more. So, I mean, what is a typical day in the life of someone who works in this sector? I completely understand that this could be very different for someone who's passionate about environment or someone who's passionate about social policy. But through your experience with Madhyam and being a women entrepreneur as well, could you tell us like what a general day in your life, like being a public policy researcher and a woman entrepreneur is like?
Um, so I think so. Right now, of course, because things have been completely, um, you know, um, on a things have gone on a toss. But I can, for instance, speak about when I was working in the office of an MP. So how my day looked like at then, especially when Parliament is in session, for instance. So when Parliament is in session, the Parliament starts at 11, but your day usually starts at 8:30 or 9 in the morning. So no, we'd come in the morning and we'd brief the MP that these are the different issues which are listed to be discussed in Parliament today. This is what we have prepared for you. This is what you can speak on, and then there is a lot of discussion which happens on that. Sometimes there are people who are wanting to meet MPs in the morning just before they go to Parliament, so that they can tell them what their issues are, and if they can raise that in the Parliament. Then while Parliament is going on, we are keenly following it, so that we know what's going to happen the next day. What are the important things that the minister has said, to which we might have to react. We might have to prepare a press statement. We might have to prepare some social media statement on something that has been announced. So, for instance, if the budget is being announced, then we have to be very alert and follow the budget announcement very closely, and prepare points on what an MP can eventually say in their press briefing later on after the budget, etc. So this is how your entire day goes by, and of course you're preparing for the next day, because a whole different set of things will be on the agenda the next day. So you're preparing for that. So that's how basically life in an MP's office looks like once while the session is going on. I can also, for instance, talk about how a day looks like when you are working in election campaign management, because that is also
Yeah, for
something
sure,
that
definitely,
I did.
definitely.
Yeah, because that's also something that I did for a good number of months before the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, and it can be absolutely crazy. The day, of course, I mean, the day never starts and the day never ends. Basically, you are always working, and the work ranges from constantly being in touch with the workers, the political workers on the ground, where all the rallies are being planned. What is going to be the agenda, what is going to be the speech that the candidate will speak on, who are the different stakeholders that the candidate needs to meet to be able to convince them to campaign for them to come on their side. We have to do a lot of research on different issues that the candidate should speak on. We have to work on their social media campaign. What should they be tweeting about? They should be writing about every day. We have to work a lot on how their banners should be designed, what should go where, etc. So from something as you know something as mundane as this to something as grand as, okay, so this is going to be our so on this particular policy issue, this is the stand that the candidate is going to take, and then the candidate is going to stick to the stand, and that can take a lot of deliberation, etc. So I think when somebody is working in public policy, unless you are working in the kind of job where your deliverables or your what the end result is going to be is very well defined, then of course you have a very sort of a sorted day. But in most of the public policy assignments and jobs that I have done, and I've done a whole range of it, it's been very dynamic, so things change on a day to day basis. And one day you'd be doing this, the other day you'd be doing that. But I think that's part of the fun of being in a public policy job, which really does give you a wide range of things to do and to learn from at the same time.
So, Mansi, I mean, you've had like some really interesting experiences working in election campaign management and also with parliament sessions and with Madhyam. So, doing all of this, like on an average, I'm talking because I know there are like there are times when you're like super swamped with work, and then there are times when it's more relaxed and all of that. So, on an average, like how many hours a day and like a week would you say that you usually spend working?
So see, I've all throughout my five years of career, except the first year when I was just doing LAMP fellowship. So which means that I was just working with the MP and nothing else. But since then, my life has been doing multiple things at the same time, because there was always Madhyam in the backdrop. And then along with Madhyam, I was doing a lot of other things. I was working with MPs. I was also taking public policy research assignments from other organizations. I was working with some advocacy organizations. So I was doing multiple things, mostly just to expand my own horizon, my own understanding of different public policy issues. And because I thought that everything that I was doing was adding to my learning, which I can then invest back into Madhyam. So and then of course, because you are an entrepreneur, you're trying to build something of your own. So there are no Sundays if you are pursuing an entrepreneurial venture, and you would also know it now, because what you are trying to do with Learn Hub is much the same. So you know that there are no Sundays, and that's fine. I think I've never really bothered. I've never been bothered by the fact that I am when I don't have fixed hours for work, that okay, I start at 10, I finish at 6, and then I don't have to worry about anything till I get back to office the next day. There is always something on my mind that okay, I'm done with this now. This is what I need to do next. Sometimes I create work when there is none, because if it's very difficult for me to sit idle. um, but that doesn't mean that this is what being in public policy means. It could mean like a proper 10 to 6 job as well, especially if you are, for instance, working in for instance, if you're engaged as a young professional with a ministry, then you'd have set hours, you'd have set work conditions, you'd have set deliverables, etc. um, but I think it really depends from work to work. What is it that you're doing, where you're working, and that will define how your working hours or your or a normal working day looks like. But looking back, I think I definitely have no complaints about not having many Sundays in the past five years. It's been well worth the journey.
Right, that's amazing, Mansi. And also, you are doing a lot of humanitarian relief work right now at the moment, working with people who are in the Delhi government and other civil society actors. And given the pandemic that the whole world is fighting right now with like COVID-19, how do you expect Madhyam and even a future in public policy to evolve given this current situation?
So actually, this has made me think about Madhyam, and how I can contribute, because the kind of work that I do is wasn't proving to be very relevant in this crisis time. What I do as part of Madhyam. I did this ration and relief distribution work that I took up. I took it up partly because I wanted to contribute in some manner, in the ongoing crisis, howsoever I could, and then also because some of the people who are working there are my friends, and they were looking for help at that time, and they reached out, and I thought I might as well, get involved. So that is there, but I think, and then eventually I started thinking that okay, I think this is an opportunity to rethink a lot of things. This is an opportunity to to go back and redesign your plans and your ambitions about where you're headed, what is it that you're going to do, because like everyone is saying that the in the post COVID era, life is going to be different than how it was earlier. And I think it's a good opportunity to think anew about things. So I also then thought, okay, so what is it that I can do as part of Madhyam through it? And then I thought, okay, one of the things that, as I said in the middle somewhere also, that I very passionately follow Parliament and I want people to take Parliament seriously. And then I started thinking, okay, so this is one time when you'd want to see your MPs, um, debating and deliberating on what should be done in this crisis situation. How can people be held? What kind of relief packages should be designed, etc. And when this is what should happen, what actually is happening is that Parliament is not in session. So there are no deliberations happening, there are no debates happening, and the government has announced an economic package, and a lot of people are trying to decipher now what that economic package means for which section of population, etc. But you know that your elected representatives, people that you have chosen and elected, sent them to Parliament for the very purpose of designing policies for you, are not contributing to it right now. So then I thought maybe this is something that I can take up as a cause and talk about it. So then again I started doing what I do. So I started writing about it on my social media. That I started writing about it on my social media, that Parliament as an institution shouldn't be dysfunctional at this point of time. At least committee meetings should happen. And I know that there were a lot of other people also who were having similar conversations, who were also trying to uh, you know uh, push their parliamentarians to at least have committee meetings, where different issues can be discussed. So as a matter of fact, in the coming few days, on 26th of May, actually, I will be holding a webinar in which I will specifically talk about Parliament in the time of COVID. So, what an institution which is meant as an accountability, checking institution, where MPs, the main role of a legislator is to keep the executive under check, is to seek accountability from the government. So, what role is that institution playing in these times of crisis? So then I started talking about these things, and then a lot of people also started, noticing that and talking about it. So then I thought maybe this is how I can contribute to the crisis. There could be one cause that I could take up, and then speak about it and make more people aware of it and get more people to talk about it. So I think anyone who is feeling that I'm not able to contribute to the in the current crisis at all, should perhaps take a step back and think whatever it is that they are doing. They may be studying right now, they may be working on their startup, they may be doing a particular job, but they can, I think it's possible for each one of us to think back on what is it that we can link our job with the current crisis. So anything that can emerge as a solution, anything that can emerge as sort of a new thing that we can also pursue as as part of our startups or as part of our jobs, and something which also contributes to making life somewhat easier for those who are undergoing the crisis right now. So that's how I dealt with it, and that's how I plan to deal with it in the future. I know that a lot of other other more conventional startups, who have invested a lot of capital and labor in their organizations right now, are really struggling because the economic situation isn't good, and it might not become very favorable for a long time to come. And therefore I think it's really a good time for all of us to you know to to look back and to think of new strategies of doing things, perhaps to make our ideas, to make our ventures, to make our organizations more disaster proof. So I think that's maybe one takeaway.
Great, Mansi. That's really nice to hear, about all the passion that you have and about having this upcoming webinar as well about the parliament. I just wanted to know, like, you yourself are a business graduate turned lawyer, and then you've gotten into public policy. So, for someone who's interested in making a career shift, who's been working hardcore in corporate or in another field, and they want to, get into public policy, what advice do you have for them?
I think one advice would be, to take up something which they can do along with their current job, which
Okay.
sort of helps them experiment a little with what a career or a job in public policy would eventually look like. So for instance, I know that a lot of people hesitate in taking up a volunteer work, for instance. But if you are someone who has a full-time job, say Monday to Friday, and it's a job which is farthest removed from public policy, say it's investment banking, though I know investment banking will not be Monday to Friday, it will be Monday to Monday, 365 days a year, 24 into 7. But if suppose that is something what you were doing, and you're like, okay, I am very interested in public policy, and a lot of people I've seen have um, make a very sudden shift, which might work out for some, so they leave their job and then they're like, okay, now I'm going to find something in public policy and it will work out. It may work out for some, and I'm not saying it won't. But my advice would be to start doing something on the side, and it could be something as simple as taking up a topic for research, any issue of public policy that you are interested in. Do your research, perhaps write something on it, try and see if it gets published, because that's one way to see if you have the temperament for it, because that is what your job will look like. If you do get into public policy, you'll have to do a lot of research and writing. So if you think this is something you cannot do even as a hobby, then maybe public policy is not meant for you. Another thing that you can do is that there are a lot of courses available, even online, short-term courses, etc., which might give you a taste for it, which might make you sort of understand with some of the things which are spoken about in the public policy circles, etc. Maybe you start with that. There are some organizations like Takshashila which offers a course, or there is Bilac also, which offers public policy projects, live projects to be done simultaneously with what you are doing. So I think it's good to start your foray into public policy by such through such incremental steps, where you either take up some short term project, you do an internship. So for instance, I have offered a lot of remote internships to people who are interested in public policy while they are working or while they are studying, and through that, they have experienced for themselves what it means to be in public policy, and then they have, some of them have gone on to do further public policy jobs, and some of them not also, because then they realize that this is not what's meant for them. So I think it's best to do something like that than to make a sudden switch and then maybe find yourself completely in the wilderness, not knowing what to do. So it's best to, I think, I mean, that's how I would go about it, and that's actually how I have done a lot of things incrementally over the years, trying my hand at different things and finally arriving where I am. So it takes time, but it's okay. I think it's very important to also enjoy the journey and not just reach the destination without realizing how you've reached there.
Right. So your advice to anyone who would be interested to get started is to possibly just experiment a little bit, either through courses or through volunteering, and see if it's something that resonates with them before they take it forward. In that
Yeah, but
sense, Mansi, I
yeah,
mean, this is
definitely.
like
Yeah,
the big money
well,
question that people have, you know.
yes,
So
yeah.
I mean, how
You
much does someone who works in public policy, like when they start out either as a volunteer, as an associate, or any of that, how much do they make basically, and how does this salary rise with time?
So see, it really depends. Um, uh, so I have in my own career, for instance, I have seen a lot of different pay options depending on what is it that you are doing. So one MP might pay less, another might pay more. One organization for the same role might pay less, another might pay more. If you are working in the corporate sector, so for instance, nowadays almost all the major corporates have a public policy division because they eventually have to deal with a lot of regulations, government regulations, and government relations. So they hire people for that and they pay well for it. If you're working in election campaign management, there are some people who will pay very well for that. At the same time, there are some organizations which will pay you peanuts for it. So it actually depends. It's a wide spectrum for freelance work. Also, for some of my freelance assignments, I've been paid very well. Somebody else had a lesser paying capacity, so they paid less. So it's a wide range. It could be, I think the range for me, at least the range has been from 25,000 to 1 lakh rupees. So that's how wide the range is. But I don't think it is something which is very very low paying. I wouldn't say that. Plus I think the work, the scope of the work is such that if you are someone who learns very fast, then your growth can be very quick as well. Because it's all about, because there is a genuine need for a lot of people who understand public policy, who can do effective communication around it. And if you are someone who's like that, then you will be paid well for your skills and for your talents. So that is definitely there. But on what you were saying earlier, the very reason I say something like this is, maybe you should, if you are already in a job, or if you are studying right now and you think that public policy is what you want to do, the reason I say experiment with it is because I think if you are coming into public policy as someone who wasn't, for instance, when I did LAMP fellowship, it was a very gradual sort of entry into public policy, and a very protected sort of entry into public policy, because the LAMP fellowship you are properly trained. There is a 1 month's training that goes into it. But in any other public policy job, you'd be thrown before the lions at the get-go. So you'd reach your office on the first day and you'd be like, okay, start the work. So the only reason I think, I would say, because that is the process that I have gone through, and I know that process works. So I think I would say, if public policy is something you're interested in and you are currently doing something else, don't make a sudden switch. Instead, make incremental steps, experiment, research, write, do internships, like remote internships or something, do some voluntary work, take some maybe take a break, work with some MLA, some MP, etc. Even if it's for free, it's really good learning experience. And then if you think it's not working out, you can go back to what you were doing, or you can start your journey into public policy. But I think it's important to take that time.
Right, right. So Mansi, with Madhyam always having been on the backdrop, and so many initiatives that you yourself have taken in the space of like policy advocacy and research, which has been like the most wow moment for you, where you knew that okay, this is where my heart lies, and this is really what I want to do.
So I think Madhyam, definitely, because I think there have been times when I thought, okay, I think I've done enough. Because as I said, one of the skills you need to have is persistence and perseverance. is because in a job like this there will be many moments when you would feel like giving up. Okay, it's not working out. I've tried my best. Nobody's listening to me, and this issue that I'm working on is never going to get resolved. But then, there are times when, I have, for instance, introduced myself as someone. Okay, hi, I run Madhyam, and then someone has gotten back to me, say, hey, this is a channel I follow on Twitter or on Facebook, and I've learned a lot about what's happening in Parliament through this, this. Channel, and I've really enjoyed these updates, and that sort of gives me the energy to keep going on, realizing that there are people out there who care about this information, this content that I produce with a lot of with a lot of effort and with a lot of love, and there are people who are willing to receive it. So that is definitely one wow moment which has occurred a couple of times now, and it's always good when it happens. But also, other than that, I think another wow moment is just just being being a part of something which you see being, I think, because I think in very few jobs you get this opportunity that something that you're working on is actually coming into reality. So, for instance, if you are working with an MP, or if you're working with a ministry and you've worked on a piece of policy, and you gave your whole and soul to it, and you spent a couple of months, couple of years on it, and finally the government has adopted it, and the government has said, okay, this is what we are going to do. I think that feeling is unmatched, because then that something that you have been working on is is getting implemented at the largest scale possible, is going to impact a lot of lives. And I think that is one thing that keeps me in this field and keeps me doing what I am doing, hoping for, so right now I have these very mini impact stories, but hoping for some major impact to happen one day as well. So that's what's keeping me going.
Right, right, right. Mansi, I just have one last question to ask you. With all the experience that you've had and with so many freelancing initiatives that you do and working and also, running your own venture and all of that, what is a pro work-life balance tip that you could like share with us?
So I think this is something that I follow. Might not apply to others, but I think every once in a while I get very overwhelmed with the work that I'm doing, and that's when I think, okay, it's time to take a break, to take a step back, and it could be an actual break, where you just like take a break and go somewhere. Or a lot of times, what I try to do is that I take a break and I try to do something different. So it could be, okay, let me just enroll myself in some different course altogether, or let me just take up some very different uh, volunteer opportunity, or something like that. So that really helps me, sort of also especially if you're in a kind of work which is physically also is burning you out. If that is the case, then I think every once in a while, and it could be depending on what your how much you can handle. It could be a couple of weeks to a couple of months, but every once in a while, I think it helps to take a break. So you stop where things were, and you try and spend a few days doing something different, or just not doing anything at all. And then I realized that you come back very refreshed. So that's how I do it. And it works really well for me. And I think that is what has helped me do a lot of these different things in my life as well. A lot of these things were a result of, I remember the first one of my election campaign assignment actually resulted out of this, and I was like, okay, I'm getting very overwhelmed with the work that I'm doing day in day out. I need to take a break, and suddenly that opportunity came, and it took me far away from home. And I thought, okay, new place, new people, new experience, I think I will come back much richer, so let me go for it. I went for it, and of course then it opened a whole new doors for me on what more I can do. So I think that's how I try to manage work and life, because I think doing the same kind of thing again and again and again definitely strains you out. So I think it's very difficult to keep reinventing, experimenting, keep doing different things, even if it means doing something completely different from what you have been doing so far. So for instance, I've gone for music lessons. I remember I once enrolled myself for singing lessons, just so that I could get all that energy out. And it was, in the middle of election campaign work, but it was really good to, after a very tiring day, to go to that singing lesson and to take it all out and then come back refreshed. So I think these kind of things really help.
Right, right, right. Thank you so much, Mansi, for being here with us. And thank you so much for like telling us about Madhyam and for helping us go through different type of careers that exist in both public policy and administration. It was really great talking to you, and I hope our viewers also feel the same. There haven't been any questions in the chat box, which is why I'm not asking you anything. But thank you so much, and I really like from Learn Hub, we wish you the best with Madhyam and your future endeavors.
Thank you so much for having me over, Radhika. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, great, great. All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye.